Hello everyone, my name is Moji. You're watching a Bitcoin Bubble News channel. Bitcoin has doubled every year on average for 11 years, and he's upset that it's taken so long. We've been doing this for 11 years. That deal is great. It's great that Bitcoin is being used to build some really cool things. Things like stacks are great. But sometimes people ask, what's Bitcoin's killer app? Isn't Bitcoin the best thing about it? So much money is saved and moving between countries. My guess is that Bitcoin will reach $2.50 trillion in the next year. Anthony Scaramucci and Dan Moore, two well-known Bitcoin supporters, talked to Aaron Arnold and Gary Cardone about market trends, institutional investment, Bitcoin's prospects, and the impact of Donald Trump. They stressed that exchange-traded funds are getting a lot of high-quality capital, which is a trend that experts often don't take into account. Gary Cardone talked about Bitcoin as a risk that isn't shared equally. On the other hand, Anthony Scaramucci said that Bitcoin should have the same market price as gold. Scaramucci said this trend would continue and gave the example of pension funds and other large investors putting some of their money into Bitcoin. Cardone agreed, pointing out that institutional investors don't have much experience with Bitcoin and blockchain right now, which makes the deal inevitable and unfair. He said that the smart money hasn't paid attention to this movement, which is mostly driven by individual buyers. Cardone stayed positive about the future and predicted that big investors would put more money into Bitcoin and blockchain technology, which would lead to even more growth. Would you say that Bitcoin is still an unequal bet tonight? Help us learn. Gary, I'll first throw it to you. I think it's not balanced. I think everyone is underestimating you. These guys have been here longer than I do. I haven't met anyone who came close to the predictions of the quality or volume of these ETFs. The quality is amazing, and the number is amazing. When even Bitcoin experts can miss that number by 3 to 4 times, I don't think anyone really gets how unfair this could be. Everyone missed it. Everyone. Anthony, what do you think? So I'll put it in a very simple way. It is a type of wealth. Because of this, it shouldn't trade to the market value of Apple or Nvidia. It has to trade at the same value as gold on the market. I would even say it's better than gold. In that case, it's likely to trade higher in market value than gold. After that, I'll say 2 quick things. The mayor of Jersey City just said that the pension fund will have a 2% stake in Bitcoin. Wisconsin's government says they have 150 million Bitcoin, which they said they had a month or 2 ago. Next year, someone will be here describing that all institutional investors' tactical asset allocation models will have a 1, 2, or 3% exposure to Bitcoin. When you think about how big that is, I don't see why you wouldn't trade based on the gold market value. Yes, I agree with Anthony 100%. That is the right way to see it. We worked at Goldman when they did the GSEI. Now, everyone thinks of commodities as an asset class. In the 1990s, they did developing markets, and now everyone thinks of those markets as an asset class. Every big investor in the world will have a blockchain team in no more than 5 years. They will be given a certain amount of money. It will be around 800 basis points. And that's why I'm still so optimistic nobody has that share right now, and I still think it's so unequal. This is the first deal. The smart money missed, right? People in the crowd like you are the ones who did this. Blockchain holds either no assets at all or less than 1% of the assets of almost every institution. As a result, I believe it is the most unfair trade I have ever seen and the most likely trade I have ever seen. It looks like it could take longer than we all think. In 10 years, almost everyone with a smartphone will be using Bitcoin. It does have some ups and downs for sure. Like it's really that clear. That's why I still think it's very unequal. Institutions haven't really done anything about it yet. Is it a million times better for Bitcoin if Trump wins? Wherever I personally disagree with the president, a strategy, or something else. It's great that he's willing to use this technology and this good. I praise him for it. Let me tell you something good he's done for this business. We should all be thankful that he sparked a discussion, okay? So it was said, and I'll tell you about it. It's Mark Cuban, me, Michael Novogratz, and people from Kraken. There were a lot of people with us, not just Kraken. We had Mr. Garlinghouse with us. Members of Congress, Senator Gillibrand, and Anita Dunn from the White House sat with us. Ro Khanna was also there, and I don't think we'll be meeting with the Democrats without Trump himself. So I'd like to praise the president for that. I also think we can get the Democrats to join us in the pool. Last but not least, let me say this. The business, all of you who own Bitcoin, and people who believe in the long-term wealth that digital assets can bring, are all interested in this being done by both parties. We want this rule to be good for both parties. I also think that President Trump should be praised for bringing people together. It's great that Bitcoin is being used to build some really cool things. Things like Stacks are great. But some people ask, what's Bitcoin's killer app? Isn't Bitcoin the best thing about it? Bitcoin is a great thing for the world, even if nothing else is made on top of it. It stores a lot of wealth, helps people save money, and lets money flow between countries. Even though Bitcoin is great on its own, adding a token market will make it grow much faster. Because we've seen what token economies can do to other coins, it's likely to be worth more than gold. So the question is whether the technology exists and whether it can be used on Bitcoin instead of a token market. Yes, that's the answer. I'll only talk for myself here, but I don't think I'll make the investment because of that. Danny and Gary may disagree with me. That's right, I'm putting money into this because it seems like the best way to keep money safe. Money is the oldest form of money that people know of. It is also the most pure form of a store of value. Also, I'm writing a book called The Little Book of Bitcoin for John Wiley. It will be out soon. Also, Michael Saylor decided to forward it for me, which I appreciate a lot. Peter Diamandis told me, "You remember meeting Hal Finney, don't you?" When I went to talk to him. In fact, I didn't remember meeting Hal Finney. What I do remember is that Peter Diamandis introduced me to Health, and of course he was the first person to get a coin from the Nakamoto pocket. Also, I met Howie Finney in 2014. Please don't tell my kids that I met Howie Finney that year because I didn't buy any Bitcoin. I want you to think about what they did. In order to make this better, make it decentralized, and get rid of the token system, people need to keep using Bitcoin the way they are and let it grow. I believe that Bitcoin's market value could reach $2.5 trillion in the next year. That's how I like to see it, not the price. It's interesting to me to compare it to an Nvidia. What the heck is Bitcoin now? Now that we're at 1.3, that's another billion or $1 trillion worth of value. That's 30 grand. To answer these guys' question, I don't think you need the cream and the cherry on top to decide to invest in Bitcoin. At this point, we don't realize how big of a deal this could be if all of the tokenomics happen. Dan, what do you think the price of Bitcoin will be in a year? The answer I always give is double, because that's what it has done for 11 years in a row. But I think this political free-up makes me more optimistic. I believe it will be more than a double 160,000 or something like that. 160,000. Anthony? Hi, I'm interested. If this price is right, I'll pay 10,000 more than Dan. I do think that though, because if you look at the halving cycle and how supply and demand work, you usually see a 4x move from the halving, which means 160 to 170. And I believe that can very much happen. In other words, there are global shocks that could hurt it. But I also think Bitcoin will separate over the next 12 months. In other words, I don't think it will be as connected to the NASDAQ or to supply shocks like MT shocks or the selling of German government bonds and other similar events. Once people get into Bitcoin, if you buy 0.1 Bitcoin, I think you start to think about your other investments. I'm beginning to compare everything in Bitcoin terms, just like when I sold a house. My house is lovely, but it's not worth $76 million. In no way is that worth that much. And if I had put that same amount of money into Bitcoin 4 years ago, okay, it would cost 72 million.